Hello everybody, welcome back to the workshop. This is one given to me by a friend of mine. He said, Dave, I've had it in at the Stihl shop and they said it's beyond economical repair. So he took it back, bought a new one and said, Dave, let's see if you can fix it. So at the moment you'll notice that if I heave on the zip cord here, it comes out a little bit. It's got a funny looking spring to it. Oh, by the way, this model is a FS 260C. I'm sure that a lot of Stihl stuff is the same. This is one of the higher end models. So it's got a funny kind of spring to it there, and it would seem like the piston is stuck or something else has come apart inside the engine. It was run on two-stroke without quite enough oil in it. So what happened was friend's missus put new petrol in it, and they thought, oh, that'll be enough oil, and didn't measure it out accurately enough, or for some other reason didn't quite get enough oil, and thought that'll be all right, but it wasn't. It died nearly straight away. So let's just get the spark plug out of there. Spark plug hides behind this little cover. Now, to save you watching me muck around with it, what I did before was a couple of hours ago, gave it a spray with this stuff. You can use any kind of penetrating oil like WD-40 or things like that. This stuff is just a lanolin based lubricant. I find it quite useful. So I gave it a good blast down the spark plug hole, and I've let it sit for a few hours. That didn't free it up, but let's just get the zip cord off the end there, or the pull cord. This is a T27 Torx. We'll just pop that off there. Okay, let's got that off there. Let's see if this still zips out. I think that, what's wrong with that? I think the springiness might be in the mechanism of this lot. Well, let's find out. I don't think there's any movement at all in that. Careful not to crush anything. Get a good strong grip on it. There's a bit of movement there. I'm going to put some more oil down there because it sounds pretty graty. Alrighty, I've taken a couple more covers off. I can get it to turn about 3/4 of a turn, and it's really crunchy. So something is locked up inside, something has come undone there. If I stick a small screwdriver down the spark plug hole, it's still, the piston is still connected to the crank, so the connection rod hasn't come apart, or the con rod. So I think I'll just keep pulling it apart. I can see 4 more Torx screws down there that look like they hold the cylinder head on, and it's the whole block. The piston must be up inside this part, so there is no separate head. I think it's just the whole block on top there. Wonder what the torque setting on these is. About that much. They've got nice little holes through all the fins here to line up with that screw, so they must want me to take it apart. So that's got those 4 cracked. There's a little magneto on the back here, and it looks like that's screwed in here. So whether I've got to take that out, or I probably do, because there's a screw in there holding that on. You can see that there. There's another screw in there that I can't get off because the guard's in the way. So Perhaps I've got to take off this thing here. I'm not sure how that connector comes off, but let's find out. Looks like that just comes off of there. Get that out the way before I break it. I see two more of those bolts down there. I don't know how that connector comes off. Maybe I can lift the whole lot out the way. Let's find out. Alrighty, I'll bring you back when that's off there. Basically more turning in the same direction. I'm also going to have to get the muffler off by the look of this. And I can see a couple of screws buried deep inside there. That one wasn't very tight. This looks like then the gasket and then this little metal bracket. See it going up and down in there. It looks like it's got a dirty great big score in the side of it. You might not quite be able to see. If you look on the right hand side there, over here, I can see a dirty great big scratch. Let's keep going, see if we can get that out of there, or at least have a look at the shape of the bore inside. This one more bolt here, looks like that holds this little shield in place. That one's a bit tighter. Judging by the green surface on the outside there, that one's Loctited in. Assuming that's just on a flat surface there without some dicky thing holding it in, I reckon this should come off now. Alrighty, I'll bring you back when they're all out. I just lifted that straight off once I got those 4 bolts out, and I just took the fuel inlet pipe off here, and the carbie's still attached to that. I couldn't see how to get the carbie off without demolishing something else, so I just left it on for now. But more importantly, if we take a look at the top of the piston here, there's all manner of crap and filings and stuff. So that is bits and pieces of something else. Whether it's the rings, yeah, I think it is. I look here, the rings sticking out there. So I think that's pieces of disintegrated rings in there. So that was never going to go anywhere. And the same crap's all down the bore there. Don't know whether we can save it. Let's just see if I can get a full rotation out of the crank now. think I can, but it's certainly stiff. I think there's bits and pieces of ring broken off down inside the engine there. There goes a piece. Where did that go? Whether I can get that off. I think there's bits of it stuck in there. So there's part of one of the piston rings. Oh. How did I miss that? 30 great big hole in the top of the piston. That'd be part of the trouble. So unless I can find a new piston, don't think I'm really game to try and make one. I could, but yeah, I might have a bit of a dig around, see whether I can buy a piston. So that's going to be what killed it. Okay guys, I managed to get the piston off. The gudgeon pin was in there with that little bearing in the middle there. The bearing goes in the top of the connecting rod there. But the tricky part was this little tiny clip was in that groove, and the only way to get that out is to hook it out in that little slot. The other side doesn't have a slot in it, so that little groove, that little clip is still in there. I don't think I need to get that out. You just had to tap it out with a pin punch. Didn't take much force, and that allowed me to get the piston off. I can see it's got all sorts of shit hammered on there. Down in the bottom of the head there, in the darkness, there's all sorts of shit hammered down there as well. So I'm probably going to have to try and figure out a way to clean that out. I don't have a piston ring compressor that small, so I'm going to have to buy one of those and some ring expander tools. One thing I did notice though is the piston isn't the same on both sides. There's this little funny slot here, and the side with the slot on it was facing towards the fuel tank. So when I reassemble it, I won't want to put it on that way. I want to put the side with the slot towards the tank. So I wrote tank on it. Over here at the parts washer, my hope now is to get in there and wash out any chunks of broken piston. Let's see if I can do that without getting it all over me. I can hear little bits landing on the metal tray. Alright, I'll keep going at that, and I'll bring you back if something useful happens. About 2 seconds after I turned the camera off, it came good. And now that's spinning freely. I think there was some little chunks of aluminium stuck against the counterweight there, and when it passes through the bottom there's not much clearance, and it was just sticking on that. So now that spins free again. So I'll maybe spray a bit of carb cleaner in there, blast any remaining pieces out. I don't think there are any, and it'll also dissolve the rest of that parts washing liquid stuff. So I'll go and do that, and we'll go back over to the workbench. I reckon it'll live. Smooth as silk. Okay, it's a couple of weeks later, probably more like 4 weeks later. I've just got my new piston kit in. I had to get that from New Zealand of all places. So I found a company that stocked them in the United States, and a company in New Zealand. Couldn't find any of them here in Australia. They actually, I could have bought some Chinese things, but they didn't even look close to this. This came out looking pretty close. I can see there's the same cutouts and the same grooves. The grooves are slightly different sizes, but I don't think that will matter. We're about to find out. It also came with a little gudgeon pin and a couple of those little tiny clips that hold the pin in place. 2 piston rings. The only thing I don't have is a ring compressor. I'll need something to help me hold the rings down to the 42mm to get them inside the bore. I'm going to make one out of this little piece of pipe. The pipe is too big. That won't matter. I'll be able to cut a piece out of it and squash that down. I need to square off the ends and make it nice and neat and tidy. So out of this chunk of wood, I'm going to make something to hold that pipe in the lathe, and then I'll knock something out. Let's go and do that then. Mrs. Shed said to me, "What are you doing with wood? Thought you were fixing the line trimmer." I told her I was making a thing for a thing. I have to make a way to hold the piece that's going to hold the rings. Some people don't like turning wood in a metal lathe. I'm not one of those people. Make things nice and accurate, and why not do it? I'll just turn that down till it's a press fit with my tube. I'll bring you back when that's done. Don't need to bore you to death. Alrighty, that's got that turned down to a tiny bit larger than the internal bore of that. It's like 2 inches and 20 thou, or something like that. Anyway, that's beside the point. So now I can just tap that on there. Now I'm not going to need much. It only needs to come down over my piston about 15mm, well and truly, to make sure the rings are fully in place. So I need to make this about 15mm wide. I've got a hose clamp that I want to put around the outside of that to hold it in place. That's also, it's under 15. So what I want to do is make a little undercut on there so that my hose clip won't fall off. And that just needs to be, what's that, 13. So I'll make it 14. Come down about there somewhere, and let's part him off. Let's see if I can throw this out. There we go. Next I'm just going to fit these rings back onto the piston. You can see here there's a little bevel on the edge of those rings, and these little grooves for the pistons have a little pin in there. Now I figure that groove is supposed to line up with the pin, but you also have to put it up the right way, because I just tried these in the bore and they're almost touching. So that, you can see that little bevel there makes a spot for that pin to go. You're okay putting these things on as long as you bend them as little as possible. These are cast iron, so they'll snap pretty easily. But if you just go gently with it and only move them as little as you need to. How about I start off with it around the right side? Obviously the gaps go on opposite sides. There's my little gap there. Just don't bend it any more than you need to, and you should be fine. There's one on. They will sit out because they're bigger than what they need to be. But once we get the spring compressor on there, or the ring compressor on there, we should be fine. Little bit by little. Just go around there now. There we go. That's into the second groove. I'll show you what I mean there, if it's not too small for you to see. When that spring is compressed right down, that little pin there will stop it from rotating. So the gaps will always remain in the same orientation around the piston. So let's do the second one. It's going to end up there somewhere. Make sure I get it up the right way. Little bit by a little bit. I did go looking for a ring expander, but none of the ones I found online were this small, suit this smaller piston. Alright, so that's got them both on there. Now, this is the ring compressor I made the other day. I'm not sure how good the video came out for that, but it's just a piece of PVC pipe. I put a little groove in here. Don't really have to have that, but that just holds the hose clamp in place. And I cut a piece out so that it was the right size. And now I should be able to compress those rings like that and not have those two ends touch together. I probably don't want either of the ring gaps to end up there. I might just get the hose clamp out of the way of that as well. It's been a bit of a fiddle getting this all to come together. Maybe if I come on from this side, and I'll get the ring compressor close to the right size. Making sure I've got that gap in the right place, so I won't be able to see it once I've got it in there. Needs to go that way a little bit. Actually, I will be able to see it if I look down the crack. Right, that's got one of them in there. I have to see if I can find that gap again. Yeah, that's all right. Now I'll get the other one. There's that little pin. Right, I think that is fully contained. Now I'll just tighten that a smidge more so it can't move. Can still slide it, but that's got those rings fully contained now. What the next part to do is, once I fit the gudgeon pin into the connecting rod, I can slide it all down then, and it will leave this compressor pushed up as the rings go into the cylinder here. Once that's in there good completely, I can undo the hose clamp, take it off, and then just pull off this PVC tube, and then I can continue sliding it in and do up those bolts. That's the plan. This is the bearing that came out of the light there, came out of the old one. The kit didn't come with a new bearing. All these little rollers are still free, but it's got a bit of a straw colour to it, which means it must have got heated up a fair bit. I'll just put that new, I've given it a blast out with carb cleaner. I can't find any pieces in there. And I put a bit of oil on it. So now that'll pop in there like that. And that goes inside there like that. And that feels pretty smooth. Wouldn't say smooth as silk, but pretty smooth. So next, I need to fit the piston onto there. I've got two new little clips. My scissors are gone. I notice one side of this piston has a little hole, so you can hook out this clip if you need to, and the other side doesn't. So once I put a clip in this side, it's pretty much going to stay in there. So I'll do that side first. Let's see if I can fire this away somewhere. No easy way to do this, I don't think. Wonder whether it'll be harder or easier with that pin in there. So at least then it can't go too far. Bring it back when that's in. Alrighty, I got one of them in. I ended up firing one across the room, and I heard it go ping in the distance. I'm never going to find it. I've still got the two I took out of there that didn't appear damaged at all, so I'll use those. So now I need to put it back on the connecting rod here. So with these grooves here facing towards the tank was the way it came off. I've got my little bearing in there. So now with this one over the top of that, and my gudgeon pin in the back, three hands. Alright, that's got that pin all the way in there. That sits on there nice. Now I get to play the even harder game of putting that clip on this side. I'm not even going to try and film that for you. It's just a matter of stuffing it in there and getting it into the slot. Right, I managed to get those pins, or those clips, in there and in the grooves and everything nice and solid. I can push the pin back and forth about 1 millimeter, and the clips are in the grooves. They don't pop out, don't move, everything's good. Last thing I want to do is have one of those come out while the engine's running. So important safety tip though, make sure you put your gasket on before you put your piston on. You can fit the gasket over the piston, but you can't fit it over your ring compressor. Ask me how I know. Anyway, I reckon we're up to the stage now where we can put the cylinder back on. So I'll just get a little bit of oil for that. This is just engine oil. So that way this will slide in there nicely. I can move my ring compressor down a little bit just to get the piston or the cylinder started on there. Get it right, Dave. Only one way this can go on. I think it's that way. That way. So the carburetor is over the tank. I've got to get these little fuel lines back in there. I might have to take that bracket off to get those lines on. It's all looking a bit tight. I was reading in the manual about putting some blocks under here to hold the piston up. I'm not sure whether that adds anything because the bottom of the piston's not flat. So we can sit that down against the blocks like that, but it just falls over anyway. So maybe it'll help, maybe it won't. Let's have a go. About there. So now I should just be able to slide it down and my ring compressor slides out of the way, and the rings are now in the cylinder. So with that on there like that, I can take the hose clamp off. So I'll just undo that all the way. Like that. Don't need those little blocks anymore. And my little ring compressor will come off as well. Now I can just slide that all the way down until the bolt holes line up. Now, these bolts have got a, whatever that is, number 27 Torx on the head of them. I looked up in the manual what the torque setting is, and I couldn't really understand it. There's a link in the description to that manual, so if you can figure it out, go right ahead. Somewhere between 8 and 10 Newton meters. My torque wrench goes down to 20 Newton meters. Why doesn't that start in there? Is my bearing still in the, my gasket still in the right place? Let's lift it up. Yeah, looks like it. Looking down the hole, it looks good. I should be able to turn it backwards and feel the screw click, which I can't. Let's just try one in another hole first. Well, that's interesting. How the hell do we get that in there? Must have come out. There you go. There we go. That was the click. So that one's in. We'll just get that in a few turns. test. That one's in. That one's good, so that's going on with this one. That's got it now. So I'll have to be a bit careful doing these up. I'll have to estimate 8 Newton meters. Somewhere between don't fall out and don't bend it. Now we just have to tighten up the cylinder head bolts. Just as critical, we'll have to do them equally so that everything gets tightened down at once. Once I'm through that, I'll probably speed through the rest of it. I've just got a bit of tube on the end of my little torque wrench there, or Torx wrench. Right, that's got them all even. I kind of remember how tight they were when I undid them. They weren't ridiculous. One more little tweak and I think that'll do. Okay, they're all the same. Alrighty, I'll just speed through the rest of it. As I said before, I'm going to have a bit of a job getting all these little tubes back on. There's 3 and some of them are right up under there, so I'll probably have to take this little bracket off so I can get to them. If you can't figure out what I've done, just play the beginning of this video in reverse. That's all the way on. Hopefully I didn't damage the tube. Now there's one more in there somewhere. It's right down there at the bottom on the fuel tank. I've probably got 2 chances of getting that on there. Both of them are none. Perhaps if I take the fuel tank off. Tell you what guys, I'll bring you back when that's done. Here's one little trick that wasn't immediately obvious. I've got the magneto bolted back in there and I just stuck a bit of card in between the flywheel and the magneto to make sure there's a gap on it. As soon as you put the magneto anywhere near it, it sticks to it because it's a magnet. And with that card, it's about 20 thou thick. It allowed me to tighten it up. Now I should be able to pull that card out and there'd be 20 thou clearance between the flywheel and the magneto. I don't think it's particularly critical, the exact distance, but you don't want it touching. Don't want it a mile away either, but that should make it 20 thou. Here's another tip. When you take this cover off here, if you plan on taking the shaft out of the end of the engine, mark where it is, not only axially but longitudinally, so that you know when you've got it back on again. There's a spline at this end of the shaft and a spline down the other end of the drive shaft. and you got to get them both in. I was umming and ahhing, thought I'd had it, thought I didn't have it because I hadn't marked it, but once I got it all the way on, it was obvious that I had it right. So if you've got a texture mark there or a Sharpie mark, you'll know when you've got it. Now let's get some fuel and see if it goes. I checked up on the Stihl website, and they say if you use their oil, you can run it at 50 to 1. My little tank also has got 51 written on it. Nice they included a piston. Anyway, they also said if you use another brand of oil, you should run them at 25 to 1. Don't know how true that is, but that's what I read on their website. I've always used the Stihl oil. It's not cheap, but I've never had any problems. So rather than risk blowing up your nice trimmer, I'd say use Stihl oil. Anyway, let's get some fuel in there now. We'll see if it goes. I've never actually started this thing before. That's a good sign. That's the kill button. Wasn't spinning up the blade. No restrictions. I reckon beyond economical repair, my ass. So I reckon we can call that fixed. It came out all right. It was a bit of a job to get it all back together. Make sure you keep your eyes open when you're pulling it apart. Just those couple of tricks I mentioned. So if you watched it all the way to the end, you would have got them. Not many people watch my videos all the way to the end, but certainly worthwhile. I spent $100 on it, and whatever I said that thing was worth, $1,500, something like that. It was the top of the range still, so yeah, well worth repairing. I'll give it back to the owner now and they can let her rip. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.